Hi, I'm Henry Seltzer. Welcome to another edition of Transformational Astrology. And this time we've got the new moon coming up this weekend, and the Gemini new moon, it really is powerful. I know I sound like a broken record. I've been saying all along, many of these lunations this spring have been so intense and have triggered the Uranus-Pluto square that's still in alignment. This is another really intense lunation this coming weekend, and I think we'll all feel something of the pressure of it in our lives as we try to negotiate these kind of difficult times, these times of change that we're in the midst of. I seem to have a bit of a cold. I hope my voice comes through clearly. I'm just in between trips. I was at the Seattle conference, the Norwalk conference last weekend. Very, very good conference. That was terrific. And heading out to New York, where I'll be speaking, by the way, at Quest Quest Bookstore on 53rd Street. I'll mention again at the end. So let's get to the chart. Take a look at the chart. Well, here's the chart of this new moon coming up this weekend, late on Saturday evening, even later if you're back east or in Europe. Would be this wee small hours of Sunday. And this new moon is really rather remarkable. We have, for one thing, we don't usually see this Venus so close to the new moon, all at the same degree, 14. The new moon itself is at 14 and 53 minutes. Venus is about half a degree away. And then across the zodiac, we have in Sagittarius at about 13 degrees, we have Saturn. So that's a very powerful opposition. But guess what? It's Grand Cross, immutable signs. We have Jupiter at 14. We have Neptune getting ready to station also at 12 degrees. So this is a Grand Cross, immutable signs between Venus, Sun, and Moon, Saturn, Jupiter, and Neptune. And the interesting thing also is that Jupiter and Neptune are connected besides just their opposition, because if you check the parallels, which I'm right-clicking on Jupiter to do that, you do see that there's a close parallel between Jupiter at 7.3 degrees of declination and Neptune is 7.8. So it's a contraparallel, minus 7.8. So these are all connected very, very strongly. And not only that, we don't want to leave Pluto out. Pluto is only 2 degrees away from this new moon by means of an inconjunct aspect, 150 degrees aspect called a quincunx also. So we have we don't want to leave Uranus out either, and we don't have to, because Uranus, just by virtue of being conjunct this new planet, Eris is a very powerful indicator of soul intention, and so that boosts the importance of Uranus in this configuration, plus the fact that it's about a degree away from Chiron. And the other thing is that when Mars, which is retrograding back through Scorpio, stations at the end of the month, that'll be at the 23-degree mark of Scorpio as well. So there's really quite a lot happening in this configuration, reflecting back on all of the outer planets. And what you really want to do is pay close attention to what happens over this weekend time frame. It'll really last throughout the rest of the month because this is the beginning of a 30-day cycle of the new moon. So this is very powerful, and we will be seeing a bit more of an informed take on the transformational effects of Uranus and Pluto, still in orb, only about, I forget how many degrees off Uranus and Pluto is. About 6 degrees off by this point, a little bit less. But the thing is, Uranus and Pluto still remain within the 10-degree orb right up until 2020. So we will be seeing a lot of Uranus and Pluto in our lives. The transformational impulse hasn't slowed down, it's just that we're beginning to really grasp it. We've had a few hits of it, and we've realized what's necessary perhaps to change in our lives. And now we're getting to find out in more detail what that implies. We're working it out more slowly. With all these retrogrades as well, it's a really good time to be checking inside. You know that Mercury is no longer retrograde, but it still hasn't quite gotten out of the shadow, which is up until 23 degrees, again, of Taurus. That's where it's stationed back in April and went back through till about 14 degrees, and then now it's moving ahead again, but it hasn't gotten to that 23-degree mark, which we feel, which will be June 7th, which we astrologers really feel is the time that it really kind of straightens out and gets to new territory in its path. So there's still a trace of that introspection in an earth sign in Taurus. We're looking into what is behind the material world, what is behind our motivations in that way of pleasure, of relationship. What if we think about it? What are the real factors that are going on there, and how does that impact us in many other ways besides just the obvious ways, the superficial surface ways? And of course, this is all aided and abetted, very important to recognize, by the retrograde of Mars, which in Scorpio right now is powerful because Mars is a ruler of Scorpio. So that's important, and it's important to recognize that as Mars moves slowly to that 23-degree mark where it stations, is going to be making another exact inconjunct aspect to Uranus and to Eris. And that's going to be a kind of an important time too. An important time of looking beneath the covers of the motivation that we have for whatever it is that we're doing with ourselves, for intimate connection, which is the Scorpio forte. And that is where we're going to really be seeing what's happening with us if we look into it. Not to mention the fact that because Chiron is also stationing this month, and that will be around 25 degrees, we will be seeing a lot of Chiron in this coming few weeks. And so that will tell us also a little bit about what's going on inside ourselves, because that gets back to where we may detect early childhood situations that didn't resolve well and that are still wounds that we don't normally go there. We don't want to look at that. If we start to accept ourselves in those places, accept that there's a flaw. Leonard Cohen said famously, it's a very famous line, oft-quoted line, the crack in ourselves, that's where the light gets in. And if we let the light in, we do understand more, and we can accept the fact that we might be flawed. The full quote is, "Ring the bells that still can ring. Forget your perfect offering. There's a crack in everything. And that's where the light gets in." And so that's something to recognize, that if we pay attention to those dark places within us, if we tune into them, we can make progress that we had not made before by accepting ourselves in those ways. So another thing that's really important to recognize about this new moon is that Saturn is very triggered, and Saturn is square Jupiter, and that's the last square. It's fading now. Jupiter's moving on. But Saturn and Jupiter are antithetical and political, and we do see a lot of polarity in the political scene right now. Saturn wants to keep the status quo, wants to hold steady, don't do anything risky or wild. Jupiter, and remember, Jupiter is also triggered by Neptune right now. Also, there's a parallel to Uranus I didn't mention, but Uranus is also in this parallel to Jupiter, contra-parallel to Neptune. So there's kind of a wild impulse to do some crazy things, to move beyond previous high water marks of where we thought we were able to go before, invent new ideas. It's very inventive. Jupiter with Uranus is very inventive. And also with Neptune, because we see beyond the physical, we see what really there is. When we look more closely into what we have in this life, we see that it goes beyond the ego needs, the material needs, the rational, to something that is beyond rationality, involving synchronicity. Some of the quantum mechanical principles that have been shown to apply to the physical world can be seen to apply to our lives. It's amazing that these planetary alignments do correspond to realities, psychological realities for us humans as we deal with our lives, normal lives. And we are going to be seeing like the antithetical Saturn, it's definitely holding us back in some ways, but maybe by going slower we're getting a more deep understanding, because we can really think about it and look into it, as these retrogrades are also pulling us in to the introspective side. So all of this is a very I've been going real quick. I hope I didn't talk too fast for people to follow it, but it's a very, very intense time is the bottom line for it. And you will want to see where these planets are in your natal chart. especially if you have anything in the middle of a sign, especially if that is a mutable sign, so that this Grand Cross is hitting the middle of, and therefore hitting your planet, whatever that might be. That means that all four of these factors, including Venus, including Sun and Moon, are triggered in your natal chart, and you'd want to be looking at where is the Sun in my chart, where is Jupiter, how does my Saturn play out in normal ways when I'm thinking about that, and how is it even more so right now, because it's a time of great tension and of great possibility as well. Well, that's all we have time for today. Like I said, you'll want to look into your natal chart to see where some of these factors are hitting, either directly by aspecting your natal planets, or even if they are just generally in your chart or aspecting your natal planets somewhat, the planet themselves, like if Saturn is doing that aspecting, look at Saturn in your natal chart. That's very important. And to recommend some resources for that for general natal astrology, there's Alan Oken's terrific book, Rulers of the Horoscope, highly recommended. Stephen Arroyo, Astrology, Karma, and Transformation, terrific book. Of course, Isabel Hickey is the gold standard of beginning, or not really beginning, but fantastic coverage of the humanistic astrology principles in her book, Astrology, a Cosmic Science. And then there's a lot of Saturn right now. I'd say Liz Green was an important resource for that when she wrote that book quite some time back now called Saturn. It's a new look at an old devil. So these are terrific resources, and if you're interested in the resource that I've created for this new planet, Eris, because that's becoming more and more recognized now, that Eris is a factor perhaps as important as Pluto in charts, yet to be seen exactly what it all manifests as, but I have been able to characterize the archetype very specifically, and I think very accurately. I'm finding more evidence everywhere I turn, and people are beginning to recognize that Eris is an important factor and needs to be understood. A lot of astrologers are talking about Eris now. There's a few books out as well. Mine is called The 10th Planet, Revelations from the Astrological Eris. And I'll be lecturing about Eris. If you're in the New York area, I'll be lecturing about Eris at Quest Bookstore on 53rd Street on June 9th. And June 9th is actually the exact Uranus-Eris conjunction to the degree in a minute. So that'll be interesting timing, and I look forward to seeing some of you there. And then, of course, in the Time Passages software, let me also mention that we have Eris interpretations fully interpreted in the natal chart, and so I think those are very good too, the house placements and the aspects to the planets, to any of the natal planets. And don't forget to subscribe to the YouTube channel. If you have a chance to do that, that would be helpful and useful for you and for us. And we'll see you in a couple of weeks' time.